Namaskar. Good evening. On behalf of Indian section, I welcome all brothers and sisters in the study class organized by Indian section. Let us begin the session by invoking the universal prayer. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May each who feels himself as one with thee know he is also one with every other. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Today's speaker, Brother B.D. Tendulkar ji, will be continuing the topic Samadhi, Essential Technique of Yoga, Part 3, which is the 22nd chapter of the book Self Culture in the Light of Ancient Wisdom, written by Dr. I.K. Temni. Although Brother Tendulkar ji is well-known person in theosophical world, but I would like to introduce him for some new members. Brother Tendulkar ji is member of Pune Lodge TS for over 40 years and former secretary of Maharashtra Theosophical Federation and ex-president of Pune Lodge, ex-editor of Theosophical bi-monthly magazine Jagrati Vishwa Bandhutva. He is many lodges, federations for propagation of theosophy through lectures, workshops, study camps, etc. all over the world. Now I request brother, please deliver your talk, brother Tendulkar ji. I request brother, please.
Thank you, Sushmaji, for your kind introduction. As has been mentioned, the topic of my lecture is Samadhi, the essential technique of yoga. This is one of the chapters among many which are included by I.K. Taimini in his book, Self-Culture in the Light of the Ancient Wisdom. Taimini has dealt with more elaborately in his another book, The Science of Yoga, which deals with, in a more elaborate or exhaustive manner, the same topic, Samadhi, because that is the aim of the science of yoga, we can say, or rather, not the ultimate aim, but a means to the ultimate aim of knowing the ultimate reality. And with that view in mind, we have studied the Ashtanga Yoga in the previous 2 sessions. First, dealing with mainly the Bahiranga Yoga, and the second dealing with the Antaranga Yoga, which contains 3 last angas or organs of the Ashtanga Yoga, namely Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi, the 8th one, which is the essential technique of yoga, as Taimini says in chapter 22. Samadhi is a process where we try to raise our consciousness from grosser level to subtler level in a progressive manner. We can say it is a process of diving into deeper levels of consciousness, functioning through different grades of mind. We know that mind is one of the principles, and it has several sub-grades or levels related to the quality of the matter composing those various grades. Broadly, we can say from a coarser grade at the lower level to the finer grade at the higher level. And it is in a progressive manner. It indicates, as we see in the scheme of evolution, at lower levels there is a process of involution of spirit into matter, and at later stages the spirit involved takes an ascending route. From first is a descending movement of the spirit into matter, and later half of the curve shows the upward movement of releasing from the limitations which consciousness has suffered in the process of involution. And in Samadhi, we are dealing with that part where we try to raise our consciousness from the grosser physical level in a progressive manner to the subtler levels. And this involves, you can say, passing through the different grades of matter of the mental body, corresponding with gradual unfoldment of the consciousness in a progressive manner. So it's a movement from grosser to subtler vehicles. As the consciousness moves through grosser vehicles, it gets unfolded, refined, its functions become more inclusive, and the limitations imposed upon it are gradually removed. We are dealing with these movements of consciousness from grade to grade, giving them different names, as Patanjali has in his scheme of nomenclature included in the Yoga Sutras. Two broad classes I mentioned last time. One is the Sampratnyata Samadhi and other is Asampratnyata Samadhi. Sampratnyata Samadhi means Samadhi with Pradnya. And Asampratnyata Samadhi means Samadhi, literally translated, it will mean Samadhi without Pradnya, because Nya indicates the knowledge or knowing, and Pra indicates higher state of knowledge. Higher consciousness unfolds finally in the state of Samadhi. In Samadhi, what happens? Ultimately, mind gets cut off from the physical world and also from other states of consciousness, astral, mental, and so on, where the consciousness is centered in different vehicles. This movement starts from lower mind upwards. Because normally, yes, normally our consciousness at this present level of evolution is centered in the lower mind. And both Sampratnyata Samadhi and Asampratnyata Samadhi are associated with Pradnya. But the difference is not in presence of Pradnya and absence of Pradnya. The difference is one is with Pratyay and another is without Pratyay. So it is not without Pradnya, but without Pratyay rather. So in Sampratnyata Samadhi, there is a presence of Pratyaya, while in Asampratnyata Samadhi, Pratyaya is absent. This Pratyaya
excuse me, if you can mute all the other participants.
Yes, ma'am, I'm muting them as they come along, but
Okay,
I'll see if I can mute everybody then.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
If there are any new participants who have joined today, I would explain. Pratyay represents total content of the mind. Generally, in the field of consciousness, there are a number of pratyayas present at a time. And as I explained earlier, we try in dharana to concentrate on focus on one of the pratyayas of our choice on which we want to focus, concentrate, meditate upon in order to know the real nature of the pratyaya or that object of meditation. And then in the next stage, we have seen that having fixed our attention on a particular pratyaya, we can name that as a seed for our purpose. So there we also call it as Sabija Samadhi. Samadhi with presence of a seed. And Nirbija Samadhi is a Samadhi without presence of the seed. So as long as there is a presence of a seed, consciousness is one with the seed. But when there is no seed at all, the mind is vacant. And then the meditator or the observer himself takes the place of that seed or bija. So in Nirbija Samadhi, the consciousness which was one with the seed or the object of meditation, pratyaya, now is without anything to identify with. So it identifies himself with himself. So that is a stage of Nirbija Samadhi, where there is no bija, and that is a stage which helps to understand oneself, one's own real divine nature. The process of Samadhi is called the process of knowing the ultimate reality. So when we are able to know ourselves, we can know every other thing, because as we have seen, as above, so below. So knowing one, we can know all. So that is the potential of a yogi who is competent or who has mastered the technique of Samadhi to the last stage. In an earlier stage, he can become fully one with the innermost aspect of the seed or pratyaya, which is the result of the Sabija Samadhi. And in Nirbija Samadhi, he is able to completely become one with the self or Atman, whatever you call it. So that is the stage where we reach that Kaivalyavastha or whatever you call it, Kevala. From Kevala, that self. Kevala is simply that, nothing else to think about or ponder upon. So, as I mentioned, Pratyaya represents the total content of the mind. Seed represents the particular Pratyaya which we have focused on. And then we control the movement of the mind in a limited field of consciousness which we have predetermined, so that the object doesn't go beyond those limits, but within that limited area there can be a movement which helps us to understand the object in totality, in all its aspect. So it's not a partial understanding as it happens in the process of observation of an ordinary man's perception. The perception of a yogi differs from the perception of ordinary persons in this respect, that his understanding is not superficial nor even partial. It is to the heart of a thing, you can say, or the core of a thing, or essence of a thing, and in all respects, not partial, not fragmentary. So, there is in Asamprajnata Samadhi, there is no seed to take consciousness outwards. It remains all the time inwards as long as you wish to continue to remain in that state. When you choose to come out of that state, then consciousness may move in the outer limits of the field of consciousness. But if the yogi has mastered the technique in which he has complete grip over the mind, then the moment that is noticed that it has moved away, it automatically recedes back to the center again. So that consciousness or awareness is enough in case of an advanced yogi to come back that state of mind instantaneously without great efforts requiring any time. In case of adepts, as we have seen, this movement takes place like we normally observe things on the physical plane. Their consciousness is established at higher levels, but they have so mastered this movement of consciousness that in their case, this is an effortless process. They have all the time the consciousness established in the common center, which is common to all the vehicles. So since it is established at that common center, movement to any plane of consciousness is instantaneous. It is only a question of focusing it in any plane of his choice, the plane on which he has some purpose or work to be attended to. With that background, we will now go to the different stages, because since I intend to cover the topic, a vast topic, really, within a short span of time, I would just make mention of some of the stages. In fact, Patanjali himself also has not discussed it in greater detail. But there are little more details given out in its Science of Yoga. And it is on page number 38. If any one of you is referring to the book, perhaps that will be of help to you, where you can see the movement from the first stage of Samadhi, which I just mentioned, Sampradnyata Samadhi. The first stage is Vitarka, at the stage of Vitarka, which is normally it is Savitarka. But in the process of Samadhi, you reach the next stage, which is Nirvitarka. Tarka is generally the function of the lower mind. So that normal state of thinking, reasoning, from that you move to the Nirvitarka state, and from that Nirvitarka state, you move to the next stage of Savichara state. From Nirvitarka, you reach to the next stage of Savichara. But for passing from one stage to another state, there is the same process as I mentioned just now. The movement of the consciousness has to take place through the common center, because here we are moving from one plane to another, or one function of the mind to another function of the mind, which takes place at another subtler level of the mind. It is within the mind only. We are not transcending the mind, but within the mind itself, to move from Savitarka to Savichara stage, that movement of consciousness from the grosser level to the next subtler level, consciousness passes through the center. So that stage is the Asampratnata Samadhi, where there is movement through the center. So the consciousness is not in the Vitarka stage, but it has not reached the Vichara state also. So it is in the intervening state when you may experience a break in consciousness. You may experience a kind of blank state of darkness. But till then, the sadhaka has to hold on so that the consciousness remains fixed. So concentration has to be of a very high order. Otherwise, you may move away from the object of concentration. That should not happen, so that the reappearance of the consciousness through the center to the next subtler plane will accompany again with the same pratyaya. So there is a continuity of pratyaya at a higher level of consciousness, where you have opportunity to observe the object at an interior or deeper level. In the first instance, you know only superficially the object under your observation. In this next stage, you move or penetrate below the surface. Generally, if you consider here the same idea of a seed, then you will find that seed is always having a kernel hard covering in the outer side. So, Savitarka Samadhi is comparable to that, focusing your attention on that outer kernel or covering. But next stage is going below the surface. And like that, if you take a cross section of the seed, you may find that there are several coverings. Of course, these coverings may differ from object to object or from pratyaya to pratyaya. What pratyaya you have chosen for your concentration or meditation will decide through how many successive stages the consciousness has to pass through in order to have full understanding of the pratyaya or the seed which is there in the mind. If it is a very simple object, perhaps you don't have to follow the whole process of passing through different stages of samadhi. But where it is of a complex nature, you have to move from one stage to the second interior stage, then to the third interior stage, then to the fourth, like that. And these stages have been described by Patanjali as Savitarka, Nirvitarka, then Savichara, Nirvichara, then Sananda, and Sasmita. These are different stages. At the Sananda stage, you get really the experience of that a kind of contentment of coming very near to the real nature of the object. And in Sasmita stage, perhaps there is only awareness that you are observing it. There is no other feeling as such, which is a state where you have fully identified yourself with the object, and therefore you have touched the very core or heart or essence of a thing. So that is the stage which can be called as Sasmita, Sampradnyata Samadhi. And beyond that is, as I have already explained to you, is the Nirbija Samadhi. So here you are moving with the consciousness from the subtler, from the grosser plane through various vehicles from the lower mental and then subsequently to higher mental or causal, then buddhic, and then atmic. Buddhic is that stage where generally we refer to the Anandamaya Kosh. So the Sananda is that stage where you are at the buddhic level, where you experience the unity of a thing. And Sasmita is that state where you are at the Atmic level. So you have become one with the thing, and you are not having the feeling of your separate existence from the object. So that is a state of full understanding, you can say. Finally, you can see from the diagram that there is the mention of Dharma Megha Samadhi. So, this is perhaps described as a Dharma Megha. Megha means cloud. So, it is a state identical, you can say, with a person or his consciousness. If he is passing through a cloud, cloud is always seen on the background of the sky. So, in that stage, sky and cloud are mixed. Background influences the cloud. But if you can observe an object without getting influenced by the background, then you will really understand the nature of the cloud. Otherwise, your understanding is mixed up. Partly the sky, partly the cloud. So we should be able to eliminate the influences which are external to the object. Generally, what happens? We see everything in a mixed manner. Just as we say, conditioned mind is a mind which mixes the past memories in the perception of the object. As you might have seen in the past, the same object or similar object. So the image which you had formed at that time gets mixed up with your perception now. So we should be able to be entirely free from those kind of background influences. To see a thing without background is that thing, with a blank mind or with an open mind. So that stage is the Dharma Megha Samadhi, or a stage of Nirbija Samadhi, where you become one with the object in a state of total self-forgetfulness. I will just take a break of 2 minutes before we join again. in the Samadhi Pada Sutra 41, the author deals with the sadhaka whose chitta vrittis have been almost annihilated, which means there is a fusion or entire absorption in one another of the three. Those three are the cognizer, cognition, and cognize. So the triple aspects merge into one, and that stage is brought about in a process for which Taimini has taken an illustration of a transparent jewel resting on a colored surface. Suppose we have a stone placed on a colored surface. You will find that the stone is perceived without any absorption of the qualities of that colored paper on which it is placed. But if you replace that stone with a transparent jewel, the light coming from the background will give a different kind of perception of the jewel. So, the functioning of our mind, when there is a presence of pratyaya, is something like that. With a pratyaya which can be compared with the jewel, and the mind observing that pratyaya is not direct perception, but there is that seed which has two aspects. One is the ability to perceive exactly as it exists. That depends upon, one is the quality of that jewel, material quality of that jewel. Suppose if there are impurities in it, then that will affect the transparency of that jewel. And also the refinement, the way it has been polished, or if there are defects, that will also affect the perception. So similarly, here in the stages of Samadhi, there are two kinds of effects mixed up in our perception. And therefore, both these need to be controlled. So one is the ability to control the movements of the mind, which requires the grip over the mind, and then mind itself should be purified, so free of the possibilities of any other pratyayas entering into the mind. So there should be no external factors affecting perception as well as internal factors affecting the perception. Then only it is possible to reach the final state of samadhi. This concept is that the manifested universe is an emanation of the ultimate reality and its different planes, visible and invisible. They are considered to be formed by a sort of progressive condensation of consciousness. So at each stage of progressive condensation, it creates a relationship of a type which is subjective and objective. So you can say grosser and subtler in the initial stage. In the next stage, it will be less subtler and more subtler. So one will be the subjective, another will be the objective. This relationship undergoes a change, but there is the presence of subject-object relationship till you reach the last stage. The last will be purely objective. That is the direct perception of the object, where the observer is no longer there, which we have described as the perceiver, the perception, and the perceived, or the knower, knowing, and knowledge. All three become one. So that is a stage where the subjective-objective relationship ends, and you become subject-object become one only. So there is no differentiation of that type. So that is one aspect which has been described as the fundamental fact underlying manifestation. First, the one becomes three, from unmanifest to manifest. And if you want to understand the ultimate reality, then the three should become one again. So this is a process. That which is triple in nature has to become one. It is because the one reality has become the three that it is possible to bring about a fusion of the three into one by reversing the process. And it is this kind of fusion which is the essential technique and secret of samadhi. So in samadhi, we should be able to bring about unity in triplicity. And this fusion takes place at 4 different levels of consciousness, which I have already described. These levels correspond to vitarka, vichara, ananda, and asmita stages of samprajnata samadhi. And what is the principle underlying the fusion of the three into one? It is the same at all levels. So at every level of samadhi, we have to go through this process of becoming one, which is actually three. We pass through the stages of the separate existence of the three, But when we complete that stage of samadhi, three become one. And this happens repeatedly at the stage of vitarka, vichara, ananda, and asmita. So these are not different mechanisms. Mechanism is essentially the same at every level of consciousness or at level of every vehicle through which the consciousness passes. So once you master the technique at one level, it becomes much easier to move from one level to another, because it is only a repetition of the same process at a higher, subtler level. So only requirement on the part of sadhaka is to be able to hold on to the pratyaya or the seed on which you are meditating or concentrating. It should not slip out of your focus of attention. And even if it slips, there should be an instant reversing of the process to bring it back to the field of consciousness without being replaced by any other pratyaya. Because which happens in case of normal people like us who do not practice yoga, where we have not mastered our vehicles and their movements. But one who has performed sadhana, and especially this process of performing sayam, that is dharana, dhyana, samadhi, on the object of meditation, it becomes much easier. The behavior of a mind in relation to an object of contemplation is remarkably similar to the behavior of the crystal in relation to the colored paper. So, if you visualize that simile in order to understand the mechanism of the mind, it is quite identical with that. Any activity, impression, or bias which the mind has apart from the object will stand in the way of its becoming fused with it completely. So these are the internal factors which are present in the mind. What are those factors? Any activity, any impression which we carry, or any bias which colors the mind. If it is free from all these three, then mind is capable of bringing about that fusion.
Sir, kindly conclude it.
Okay. So we have to understand this process, which is common at every stage. We have only 5 minutes left. So, as suggested by Sister Sushmaji, I stop here, and perhaps it will be appropriate now to discuss and try to understand whatever missing gaps which might have remained, and there are many. So let us deal with those in this last question answer session. Thank you, Sushma ji. I have
So, sorry, sir, because we are
yeah, it's
exceeding
true.
time. So,
Yeah,
sorry,
yes.
sir.
No,
Thank you, sir.
yeah. We have time limitations and we have to adhere
Sir,
to
sir.
them.
Thank you, sir, for your deep and insightful exposition on the subject. Although the subject was very technical, but you have dealt it very clearly and beautifully. Thank
Thank
you
you,
again.
Sushma
Thank
ji.
you so much.
Yeah.
Uh,
And to give
now
justice to the subject, perhaps we will need
yes.
sometime in future again
Okay,
another
sir.
session. But whenever that is available, we will deal with that definitely because
Sure, sir.
definitely, yeah, yes.
Now the forum is open for discussion. The participants can ask questions from a speaker. If they want to add something, they are most welcome.
Sir,
Yes,
sir, could
yes.
you give a little bit of an idea about pratyay? Pratyay can be anything from
Anything.
a object to even like supposing I want to meditate on an abstract thing called education. Now, will that be a pratyay? Because that will mean many more thoughts inside it.
Yeah. There are, as we have seen, uh, many aspects, and it is not only the number of aspects, but the deepness at which those aspects are to be considered. Suppose education, as you mentioned. In the outer aspect, you may perhaps cover different topics or different subjects to be dealt with. But in each of these, there will be levels, just as the same subject is taught, say, at the primary level, secondary level, college level, university level. So subject is same, but the scope of the subject as well as the depth of the subject, the simplicity and complexity of the subject, these are to be considered at different levels, which demand moving of our conscious thinking from the grosser level to the subtler level. So, subject is education, but at every level, you go higher or deeper of the same pratyaya. At the same ground level, you may not be able to have full understanding of the subject from the point of view of making education really effective in case of different recipients, because it has to be related to their ability to grasp the subject in education. So even the educators have to have understanding of the subject to the highest possible level which you can think of. You may, as I mentioned, think for the people have got differences so far as their receptivity or ability to grasp is concerned. So we have to cater to the different classes to make it really effective and productive, because by educating the students, we prepare them for different kinds of jobs or different kinds of skills to achieve different targets. So, as you see, as we give thought to the subject, naturally consciousness moves from the simple to a complex level. Earlier, it may be just superficial at the stage of Savitarka Samadhi, as we have mentioned here. But then, when you move to Savichara, the complexity grows. And like that, we have to think of whatever may be your pratyaya.
Sir, you are not audible.
No,
Pardon?
he's audible.
So, any other questions?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
We can discuss this rather than reply, because it is more like a dialogue. You can have your own way of meditating on the same topic. So everybody may have his own perception at different levels. At the external level or superficial level, the perception is more or less the same. But as you move deeper, you will find different aspects of the same thing, as we found in case of a jewel. One may observe a jewel from one angle, another may find a different kind of brightness, beauty, color, its value, preciousness. So everybody will have a different kind of understanding, though the pratyaya is same. A person with economic background will look at education from one angle. With social background, the angle will differ. With political background, that may differ. So there are different aspects which also changes the perception and understanding. So perfection of understanding will come when we reach to the last stage, where perhaps we can have a bird's eye view of everything from the height, and we will have a holistic understanding. Otherwise, it remains always a partial and imperfect understanding.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Any other? Even your comments are valuable.
Sir,
Yes.
in the beginning, you said that Samadhi is a process where we travel from grosser level to subtler level. Just that is
Yeah.
Samadhi. First, you focused
conscious
on
movement
this
of
point.
consciousness.
Yeah. First, you focus in that point.
Yeah.
And second, you said ki yoga is Samadhi. It is the power to withdraw from all that you know at the level of lower self and concentrate yourself within, inside. That is Samadhi.
We describe this by two terms, Bahiranga Yoga and Antaranga Yoga. So first we have to withdraw from all external pratyayas which may be present in the mind. Once we are able to do that, that means we have mastered pratyahara technique. And mind is inwardly focused or established. So there are no pratyas interfering with our perception from any external influencing factors.
Yes.
So our task becomes more focused and more limited also, because the number of pratyas present in the field of consciousness are thereby reduced to a considerable extent. Then the task is of reducing the number of pratyas, because which might be existing because the internal factors which influence the movement of the mind, like our memory, like our desires, like our anticipations about future, these factors also need to be controlled and mastered. For that, we have to become more and more free from our own expectations or desires, which may be related and interfering our process of observation and also our efforts of concentration on the object. So to the extent we are able to get that grip over the mind, where mind is functioning on its own without perhaps giving the attention which is reserved for direct perception, without any kind of interference from movement of the mind on its own, without those movements desired or expected by the self. So, self must gain control over the
Okay,
movement.
sir. Thank you. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for your clarification.
Thank you.
Ji. If there is no question from participant, we will move for closing prayer.
Yeah, there are many participants. If any one of them have any points, they may feel free to ask, since this is a concluding session. There are many new persons who have joined, perhaps Rishabh Prabhu, then Dubal, Gupta ji.
Ji.
Any one of them have any clarification needed, or if they have missed the earlier part, there may be missing link in whatever they have attended to.
Videos हैं उनके किए हुए। part 1, part 2 के videos हैं।
Then you can refer to part 1 and part 2. They are there on the YouTube. So if there are no more points, I think we can conclude.
Thank you so much, sir. Again, thank you so much. It was very technical subject. It was, you have dealt it very clearly. Sarve bhavantu sukhina. Sarve santu niramaya. Sarve bhadrani pashyantu. Ma kaschid dukbhag bhavet. Asato ma sadgamay. Tamso ma jyotirgamay. Mrityor ma amritam gamay. From the unreal lead us to the real. From darkness lead us to light. From death lead us to immortality. Shant. Shanti. Shanti.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. All the participants, thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you once again.